Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck and I get to look into history. The way I do it, I don't open a book, I just meet the people who were there when. And this time I've got a treat for you. Bill's been on before, but Bill's never told the story of when he was 8 years old?
9.
9 years old.
Yeah. 9 years old.
And he remembers every. Bill, when were you born?
Ma'am,
When?
1909, July the 2nd, 1909,
And
by the Roosevelt School in Grants Pass.
okay, now 9 years later, you were just a little school kid.
Yes. And my dad worked in the box factory, Pine Box Company, and I heard all the whistles blowing, and I thought that the box factory was on fire, and I ran over there, and my dad said the war with the Germans was over. So I went down to 6th Street, and boy, everybody was going crazy. They was running up and down the streets, and so they decided to have a bonfire that night, and everybody brought cardboard boxes and lumber and everything. And there's a little park behind on the northeast corner of 6th and G, where the hawk shop is now, and they built a big bonfire, and they had the replica of the Kaiser, and they burned him there on the bonfire.
You mean they dressed up some kind of a dummy?
Yes,
And
throwed him on the fire.
now, you know, Bill, you remember this real clearly, right?
Yes.
I think they call it hung in effigy, or is it more than that when
Oh,
they
yeah.
That's good.
when they set the guy on fire?
Yeah.
When Bill started telling me this story, I thought he was telling me at the end of the war. Well, I knew stories about the end of World War II. And then he kept saying the Kaiser, and I thought, there's got to be more to this story. You were 9 years old.
Yes.
And what had it been like around town during the war?
Oh, it's hard times. This was always a poor town, and we didn't have much labor here, work, but it was a good place to live and raise kids. And I've been here most of my life.
Okay, but not all your life. From
No.
when age did you live over in Jackson County?
Oh, in 1924, I graduated from the 8th grade in Weimar in the Grange Hall. And my mother had got cancer. We lived on Sykes Creek since 1914. And my mother got cancer, and we had to move back to town. She died a year later than that. And I've been here and every place else, but I always came right back here.
The goody, I am so glad. You're a genuine logger, right?
Yes, I logged here for quite a few years. I started out to Cave Junction, and I fell and bucked timber out there for the first summer, and then Jack Valera said, if Roosevelt elected for the 3rd term, I'll shut her down. And he did shut it down, and I moved to town.
That's history. That's how strongly some people felt about their politics.
yeah.
And Jack Valera, he's the one that logged the roads or made the road up to the Oregon Caves. Is that right?
No, I don't know about that, but he was a big-time logger out there in Cave Junction. And then I came in and I went to work for Merlin Lumber Company, and I fell and bucked there for a while.
Now, fell doesn't mean you fell down.
No, the logs fell down. But I bucked there for a while, and then I got some trouble with my bowels, and I had to quit. I went to the boss, and I said, I can't push that old bucking saw any longer. I've got to lay off. And he said, well, Bill, why don't you take the bull buck job? I said, well, I don't pay much money. And he said, I'll give you $600 a month.
$600 a month? That must have been...
Big money then. And
What's a bull buck do?
They take the cutting crew, and he gives them all strips, and he try to even them out with 8 or 10 pairs, And if he gets a bum strip this time, he gets a good strip next time.
Oh, so you're kind of foreman about who gets to cut what and
Yes,
who gets
yes.
what cut of money.
I never had any trouble with the fathers and bucklers. Some of them growled, but that
I
was
bet some
hard
of
for the chorus.
some of them growl. Why don't you introduce us to the guy next to you? Who's he and where's he
Oh,
from?
This is my buddy, Jerry Glossop, Ashland, street superintendent for 25 years.
Well, that he obviously is pretty proud of you. What's a street superintendent do?
He's in charge of all the street work in the city of Ashland.
You know,
Actually, I was only 10 and a half years. I was with the city for 25 and a half.
well, they
So-
sure did need you during some of this high water stuff. Do you have stories about that?
Well, the only one I can remember is the 97 flood. The city administrator, Brian Almquist called me on the radio and he said, Jerry, get down there and stop the water before it reaches the plaza. And when I got down on the plaza, I made a curve to where here come the water. I just told the crew, let's get out of here quick.
There's no way to turn a flood around.
No.
Well, what do you think of this guy?
Well, I love him dearly. And
He really does.
He does.
I got him snowed.
And me too. What is this Tuesday stuff?
Well, once I moved into the rest home, I started coming on Tuesdays, and we just sat there and talked for 2 or 3 hours. And then he mentioned that somebody didn't take him to Skipper's like they had promised. And I said, Jerry, what are you waiting for? That gives us an outing. So I come over every Tuesday, and he plans somewhere for us to go. Like to see a friend, and we went to Rogue River to see where he lived in from 1918 to 1924. Then every Tuesday we go to lunch at Skipper's. So.
Well, now this place, you've actually visited where he grew up?
Yeah,
There in,
we were just up there a while back,
Yeah, not too long ago, yeah.
up in Sykes Creek.
why Sykes's Creek? Why did your mom?
I don't know. I don't know why my dad ever took that whole homestead up there.
It was a homestead.
Yes, and my mother had all us kids, and I had an older brother, Paul, and I had a sister, Nita. She was 10, George was 7, and Marion was 3. And my mother stayed there all week and cut the wood and done all the work there. All during the week. My dad come home on weekends and then went back on Sunday. He walked 11 miles from Rogue River home on Saturday night, and then he went back about 2:30 Sunday afternoon. He walked 11 miles back to Rogue River to get to the box factory for Monday morning.
Well, now, if he got to Rogue River, how did he get to Grants Pass?
The train was running both ways. You could make connection with the train both ways.
Ah, so the train would go.
But she done all the work. That's what killed her.
Well, what
She
about
got cancer.
what about the work Bill did?
Oh, I was just a kid. I just graduated from the 8th grade when we moved away from there.
Well, now, what was it like up in Sykes Creek? You said the land.
Poverty.
Poverty.
Yes, it was.
Well, now, had you moved up there because of the flu epidemic, or?
No, the flu epidemic was on in 1914, but that wasn't the reason. But my dad had been there as a young man, and he wanted to go back. But my mother took all the burden of raising us kids and keeping the house up.
I don't think it would have been much. Was
Well,
it
we
tough?
just run wild.
You know, I think about this guy. He's told me a few times that his fists have gotten him in and out of a bunch of trouble, and I never have seen him double up the fist one time.
Well, I used to. I always said I'll take a whipping, but I won't be pushed around.
Well, okay. What do you think of that?
He's told me that
Oh yeah.
he used to fight for fun.
Oh yeah, I did. In school, the kid said, "I think I can whip you," and I said, "Yeah, I don't think you can." So we'll see. So we get out. One time I'd whip him, and the next time he'd beat me.
You know, we used to play marbles and things. Well, Bill told me he stayed awake last night trying to think what you folks and what I'd want to hear about.
Well,
So-
this story about going to Cyclone Gap to do some work on some claims there, some copper claims. And the guy come into town there, and I saw him at the Redwoods Hotel, and he said he'd take me in there and give me $4 a day in groceries. And so we went to Kilma, and Pat Strong was there, a young fellow that I knew, and he said Pat was going to go in too. And so old Mark Gilliam, he said, where are you going to stay tonight? And I said, I don't know. And Pat Strong was standing there, and he said, well, come go to the dance with us. And I said, well, I'm not dressed to go to any dance. And he said, well, just go to the house over there and go back in that back bedroom. We're going to dance. We'll be back by 12 o'clock. So I did, and the next morning got up and I had breakfast with them and went over to the store, and here come Mr. White with 3 or 4 horses. And he said, that's your horse there. And I said, I don't need any horse holding me back. And he said, well, you got to lead a pack horse, and you can't lead one afoot. So I had to ride a horse, and I generally always got bucked off. And but we started in there, and this old horse I had was pulling back, and finally he went clear down, and took his pack off, and his back was rubbing on some, and we settled, pulled him back up, and went on in, and we got there before late afternoon. And I said to Pat, I said, what's those trees all cut off up there 12 or 15 feet in the air? He said, that's how deep the snow was when this guy come in to run his marten traps. And there was a little cabin there, about 4 or 8, and had a bunk in it and a little stove. And he come in there and stayed all night there running his marten traps. Now, I haven't heard for years about anybody trapping marten, but they did in those days.
No, you mean kind of like mink?
Yeah,
We're common here?
Oh, yeah, but they didn't need water. They stayed in the timber. They were about like a mink.
Yeah, I mean, marten was a fine fur coat.
Anyhow, go ahead. We got there in the afternoon, and we put up a tent. And in the night, I heard this double growling and raising heck outside there. And I said to Pat, what's that? And he said, that's the porcupines eating the scraps I had for dinner. And so I got up next morning, and Mark Gilliam come out there, and he said, look at my shoes. And they'd ate the backs of his shoes out to get salt. They'd eat anything with salt. And
So where he'd
he
sweat.
said I couldn't get a pair of shoes like this size of Los Angeles. He said they were kangaroo. And had breakfast. I got roped into the cooking. We had breakfast, and Pat and I started down digging these excavations to pile up, to bring these claims up to snuff.
Oh, yeah, true up the claim?
Yeah, and so anyhow, we stayed there for about 10 days, and the porcupine got his cap the next night, and I laughed, and he said, I don't think that's funny. So he said to Pat, he said, you better go out tomorrow and get Mr. White to come back in with the horses. He said, I'll pay you $4 more for walking out. He said, do you want to walk out for 4 or ride out for 4 or walk out for 8? I said, I'll walk out for 8.
Oh,
it's only 21 miles. And
you heard it here.
so I got up packed the horses up, and I took off for Cyclone Gap, which is uphill there about 2 miles. We was down on the Klamath side. And when I got to the top, there was a long ridge there, they called it Bear Wallow Ridge. And I started down that at a lope. And
That means walking more than fast.
Pat said, I bet I beat you to Kilma. He said, I'm going the river trail. It's shorter, but it's rougher. So I said, well, do your best. So I got down there, and my toe was blistered, and I sat down and took out my handkerchief wrapped my toes up and took off down the hill there, and I got into Tacoma, and Pat came over and he said, "How long did it take you?" I said, 4 hours and 15 minutes. He said, "I beat you by 5 minutes."
Oh, no.
But he had a shorter trail too.
Well,
But anyhow, I always thought that was a pretty good workout to run 21 miles in 4 hours and 15 minutes.
I think you're Olympic quality here. Yeah. And now you walk. Now you run with this tray.
Yes, yeah.
I've seen this guy carry it around, kind of like this. While we were in Jackson County, we went to the cemetery to see where Grandma, Grandpa,
All my folks are buried there.
and where's that?
Sterling.
We went up to Sterling, and he took the trusty walker along just so that.
I'd have something to keep me from falling down.
Sure, sure. He's walking along. And folks, I don't know if you ever had a privilege of seeing somebody who really didn't need it. He's walking along as if this is a baton or
Well,
something.
Something to keep you from falling down.
Yeah.
But it didn't touch the ground.
No,
You just
no.
carried along.
Well, you can always throw it down.
Now, this guy's got stories about fires and famines and stories about when there was so depression around these parts, there was no food to be found, and so you went off to the hills or downriver.
Oh yeah. Well, that was so in the late 20s that they got this depression, and there wasn't any jobs, and there wasn't any food. You couldn't find a job 25 cents an hour if you could get a job, and so we went. My buddies and some of them went down the river there and jungled up in the miner's cabin and stayed there till spring.
Was that jungled up?
Well, and we just found this cabin and moved in and took over.
It's some of these new words that I have to kind of check on you, Bill. Okay, you found a cabin,
Oh, yeah.
jungled up there.
And we just was hippies, I guess, because we lived off the land
Okay.
and stayed there till spring and then come back out. Maybe there'd be a job for you at 25 cents an hour in the hops, or any job then. If you could get 25 cents an hour, why you're lucky. I did get a job there from a guy going to widen the Murphy Road.
The Murphy Road.
Yes.
Murphy Stage Road?
No, the highway
Yeah.
through Murphy up to Applegate.
And it was dirt?
And they was cutting brush, and he said to me, he said, "Would you go down there? You got a drag saw?" And I said, "Yes." And a drag saw is a saw that's got a wheelbarrow wheel on one end, and you dog it to a log, and the saw is just a short saw that goes that way with gasoline power. And I said, "Yes, I will."
You dog it that way.
And the state inspector come by, and I was cutting this log up for wood, and there wasn't anybody else working that Saturday, and they caught me out there, and I lost my job because I wasn't on welfare.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I tried to get it back, and they said there's nothing they can do, and I went to the welfare office, and
It's called working poor, and they didn't like it.
the welfare workers wouldn't work.
No, I understand that, but you were a worker.
Oh yeah, but I went to the welfare office, and this lady come to the door, and she said, "What's going on out here?" And he said, "This man says he has to see you right now." And she said, "Well, come on in." I went in there, and she said, "You can't get your job back." And I said, "Well, I found that job myself. Nobody found it for me." And he said, "Well, you didn't have any welfare workers when you had to have so many welfare people on there for everyone that wasn't on welfare." And so she finally said, "But you can't get your job back." Finally, she pressed a button, and another lady come in, and I thought, well, maybe I'm going to get my job back. And she just throwed out 2 sheets of paper there, and she said, "That's for clothes and that's for food." I said, "I didn't come here to get welfare. I don't want it." She says, "Will you come back? Will you come back if you do?" And I said, I'll never be back. And I was always kind of proud that I never did take welfare.
Well, you're a working fool, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
What can you tell me about your uncle?
Not much.
Okay. Well, I just love his stories. I could listen to the same one
He just
every
comes over to
Tuesday.
hear the stories.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think I invite you back and back again
Yeah.
on TV? Because I think those people out there love to hear your stories too, Bill.
Well, nobody visits where I live.
No?
No, nobody ever comes.
Well, I guess I'm nobody because
Well,
I sure
no.
come.
Well,
You're nobody.
yeah, well, no, I don't mean that. But nobody visits us in the,
Oh, you mean they don't chit-chat?
no.
You and Mrs. The lady from the hospital, she lived there for a time and you were friends.
Yes, yes, I've seen
Mrs.
quite a few
Sears?
friends. And
Mrs. Yeah, I'd sure love to have her on TV.
who?
Mrs. Spears.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't think you'll ever get her because I don't know if she's even there or not anymore. She hasn't been to the dining room for a couple of 3 weeks.
Okay. Well, that's how I find guests. Bill's put me in touch with some friends of his that I've talked to. In fact, I think that's how I got some real good shows. But, you know, you've got Ashland connections. Maybe you could just tell me some real good stories about. You went to Ashland when you were a kid, right? To Medford and
No,
Ashland?
Well, no, we never did. Never went to Medford even. But we just stayed right there. We just run wild in that woods. We never went to town. If we wanted to go to Rogue River, we had to walk 11 miles to go to Rogue River and back in a day.
And what did you do in Rogue River if you're
Nothing. We didn't have any money. Just went to town.
Oh,
He confessed this morning that a little sabotage going on could be because he told me he was going to come down yesterday, but he said I thought I put it off till Tuesday because you were coming. Yeah, see.
uh-huh.
Well,
Bill,
he's been awful good to me.
he has.
Yeah, he comes and gets me and takes me to Skipper's for lunch. And when that food there, well, that rest home is not good, but you have to eat something to stay alive.
Well, now, you and I don't do this out of the altruistic goodness of our heart, do we?
No.
Oh,
What do we get out of this?
oh, you
Well-
gotta listen to that stories. I know that,
You do.
but they don't mean anything to me, really.
Uh,
I do enjoy people that do like them, like you and Jerry.
well, when I first met this gentleman 25 years or so ago, he was kind of a little bit standoffish. That he wanted to figure me out first, and so I thought I only want 2 things from Uncle Bill, and that's his love and respect, and I've earned that. So.
You've earned it. I think I got it the first week I met Bill.
No kidding.
No, I just lucky that way. Bill,
She's been faithful.
let's get back to that. The hanging in effigy. I just keep thinking of that. You were here at 6th Street. The party was happening. The war was over. This is World War I, folks, that he's telling the story. And on the northwest side,
Not the east side. Not
southeast side, was a park
No,
called Railroad Park.
no, the railroad park was where the post office is.
Okay, the
But this was
northwest.
a little park there from G Street to the railroad tracks.
Okay,
And that's where they had the fire, when everybody was excited and happy that the war was over. And they burned the old Kaiser in effigy there. And everybody thought that was quite a pretty good stunt.
oh, I don't know what they did in your neighborhood or if you remember back then, but that was in Grants Pass at the end of World War II. They honked horns.
Oh, yeah.
In Medford, they drove these huge log lumber carriers up and down and noisy and screaming. people were thrilled. They thought that was the end war to end all
Oh,
wars.
yeah, yeah, I thought so.
Would have been great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it
Looks
would
like
have been.
What do you remember? How did you get into World War? I mean, you have Camp White stories
Yeah.
because you were there when it was still agate.
Yeah, yeah.
But why don't we have you back and let you tell that little story about old?
I did.
Well, but
You got a tape? Oh, I think this is for the end gate. I laid awake all night thinking about this thing, whether I was going to make any mistakes or not.
And have you?
No, I don't think so.
Say?
Well,
Okay.
you know, you're a winner. You're a winner.
Well, I don't know that I'm that, but
It's been a privilege to interview you every time. The first time I met Bill, well, he offered me this tape, and you'd taped these stories in 1980, what? You made tapes for your family.
yeah.
The facts have never changed.
No.
I listened to that tape, and they tells me the stories in 2006.
Milo Zinovich said that I come in there and told these stories, and he said they never varied one word.
I believe it. It's the truth. So if you have stories, stop by Oak Lane and talk to Bill about if you were logging, if your dad was logging or your grandpa, he probably knew him.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Right, that's right.
Mrs. That wrote the book Trails of Galice.
Okay.
What-
Pruitt.
Yeah, Pruitt. That's a must book.
Okay. Read that book about Galice. It's fantastic. History. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and we've run out of time, Bill. But, you know, if I can twist your arm just a little bit, we'll always
Right.
keep talking.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks for coming along with your uncle.
Well, it's my pleasure. Although he did sabotage me into coming, but I appreciate it.
I appreciate you both. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying thanks for tuning in. We'll see you real soon.